So this one is NPCs in the party. Why you should do them, maybe not, and don't.
Yeah. All right. So NPCs, I'm kind of against NPCs in the party for long-term campaigns. I'm just going to explain why, and then we can backtrack on why you might want to do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I'm against it is because of the first GM I ever had. And we had a wizard that was, I'm going to say, at least 3 levels higher than us in the party. So there's your first don't. If you're going to give your party an NPC because you feel like you need to balance out the party because they're missing something,
Equal or lower.
equal or lower. 100%. Make sure that they're of equal points, levels, whatever you want to. It doesn't really matter what it is. But just make sure that they're not gods among ants, right?
Yes.
I mean, you would not put like a level 15 wizard in with a level 10 party. You just know that the wizard's just going to be like, I'm just going to cast a couple spells and this whole thing's over. It also makes it harder for you as the GM because now you're having to run. So basically, you're running an Uber character and you're running all this stuff to fight the Uber character. So if you level it up to what the Uber character can do, you're at risk of killing off your players.
Yes.
And then the real problem is, and this is the real problem, because we have this high level wizard, anytime, this is the big issue. This is why this is, okay. You should never take away your player's sense of free will. Mm-hmm. And so every time we wanted to go against something that the GM was doing, the wizard would charm us. Kid you not.
Oh.
I kid you not. And a lot of it, the real reason, and we talked about bad GMs before, the real reason was because me and Matt, my brother-in-law, were doing something out of game that he didn't like, so he decided to punish us in game. It's kind of like if you've been in an abusive church, you've done something, you've said something to the pastor during the week, and the next thing you know, you're the subject of the entire sermon, and the person's nice enough not to like say your name, but is not nice enough that everyone in the room doesn't exactly know who they're talking about, right? So it's kind of that scenario that we were fighting against. So I'm against NPC because of that experience. I'm just against NPCs in general. But let me tell you why I would consider doing it. If I was playing with a group that only had like 2 people or maybe 3 people, and I've run games before where I've only had 2 or 3 players. In fact, we're running a game now where we only have 3 players. And we never add an NPC in. We just scale the adventure to equal that. Now, to be fair, we also don't play Dungeons and Dragons. We play GURPS, or we play other types of games that are not...
A lot more forgiving.
A lot more role-playing, I'll put it that way. So it doesn't matter, like, I don't need a healer, I don't need a spellcaster, I don't need a fighter. Right? I don't need these characters. I just need a character, and I can make my entire game around that character, right? Oh, your character's like a Sherlock Holmes, and your character's like a teleporting Nightcrawler, and your character's like a guy who can shoot bullets with his mind. Fine, that doesn't matter to me. I don't care. There's no archetypes in GURPS. That helps. But if you're playing a game with archetypes, which D&D is and Pathfinder are heavily archetypal games, you need a trap guy, you need a heal guy, you need a meat guy, meaning a guy who can just take all the hits, and then you need a guy who can do some sort of beatdown spells. That's it. If you don't have those 4 roles, you have to come up with them. And so this is what we got. We got an NPC that could do the beatdown type of spells. The problem was they were at a higher level than us, and the reason they were at a higher level so that he could actually overcome our skills and charm us. Anyway, that said, why would you do it? Is simply because if you had 2 players in a D&D game and you realize, oh my goodness, they're getting killed really easy because none of them can heal. First, look for some magical items that can substitute for the healing. Second, just give them a ton of healing stuff. Like every person they come across has like some sort of potion of cure. That way, they can now heal themselves, and you don't need this third party person. Okay, but let's say that they also are lacking a person that can take hits. Like they're just like a wizard and a thief decided to go adventuring. You're like, that's a bad idea. They don't have a lot of health points between the 2 of them. What are they going to do, you know? Then I would look at giving them some sort of fighter, which is easy to play as a DM, easy to run. But I think if for whatever reason they decided not to have a spellcaster, I would just lower the level of magic that I'm going to be playing with them and be done with it. Because the last thing I want to run as a DM is another spellcaster. It's too complex. Like, let's just be honest. If you're sitting around the Dungeons and Dragons table, if you haven't done this before, really simple, right? What is the spellcaster doing? He's in a book. This is the monster manual, but he's in a book all the time. Why? Because he needs to, like, this is his job. He's just sitting there reading the book, trying to figure out what to do.
What spell that I've loaded up that's going to fit the situation.
And if you're the DM, you're already like managing like literally the weather.
Yeah.
Like, and every other person. Like, why in the world do you have the time to then figure out the perfect spell to cast against yourself? Because that's what you're doing. It makes no sense. So if for whatever reason no one wanted to play a spellcaster, great. They have no spellcaster, and I would just limit some of the monsters I throw against them just because I don't want to deal with it. If they're without a rogue, that's easy. Like, just no traps. In fact, if they're without a rogue, that's the easiest one to get rid of. In fact, if you have a party of 3 players and they want to do D&D, and like, I would just be like, hey guys, I'm not going to do any traps or anything like that. So like, don't even worry about having a rogue, and then just play the other 3 types of classes and you're good to go. And now I've fixed your problem, right? So if you need a meat shield, put 1 in. It's fine. Fighter's easy to run. If they don't have a cleric, just either give them a lower level cleric, which again, like that guy's only there to heal them after the fact. I mean, seriously, like he's just gonna stand up in front of the wizard, swing his mace, and then be done with it. And everything he casts is heal. Or I would prefer that you just go look at the healing belt in 3.5. I don't know if it's in 5 or not. Yeah. And modify it for 5 and give all your people a healing belt.
Don't think it's in 5, but it's in the MIC, the Magic Item Compendium for 5.
Go for 3.5. Go look in 3.5. Go look up the magic. It's like I don't know what it's called. It's like the healing belt. If you look up healing belt, you'll find it. I promise you. You find that healing belt. You modify it for 5.0. You give every one of your players that, and you do not need a cleric right now. I promise you that. And then just throw them a bunch of heal like potions. You'll be good. If they're without thief, no traps, no locks, don't even worry about it. Or if they do have a lock, there's a big enough guy in their party that they can break the door down eventually. And there goes any chance of sneaking up on anybody because you've been pounding on that door for 20 minutes. Buy a battering ram and put it in your bag of holding if that's what you have to do. And then there you go. And that's the end of it. I've given you every ability to do it. So that's the only reason I would do it, is if you're in a game that requires one of those 4 roles, and if that's the case, remove those 4 roles in one way, shape, form, or another. Or, throw them a fighter.
Yep.
And that's it. So that's how I would handle NPCs in the party. What the last thing you want to do is exactly what happened to us. You never want to take away player agency. You never want to take in-game, like out-of-game stuff into the game, especially as the DM. And you never want to basically give your party an NPC that is higher level than they are, because at that point, like, why? What are you doing? And if you're looking at a thing where you're like, I don't think I can modify this adventure, it really does require 4 people. Cool. Have them meet somebody along the way that is willing to help them, except they're taking 1/4 of the gold. And they're taking, if you're doing experience points, they're taking the experience too, right? Taking 1/4 of the experience. They're going to get paid for their job. And at that point, like after that mission or whatever's over, they leave. You don't have them in the party anymore. So if you have to do it, fine. Do it for temporary. But at the end of the day, I mean, you really don't need all 4 of the roles they say you do. And the easiest one to get rid of, in my opinion, is the rogue. Because traps are such a nightmare to come up with.
Yes.
Just in general. And when I play D&D, I feel bad for the person playing the rogue, because I'm like, I normally don't do a lot of traps.
I mean, even the modules don't give a lot of traps. When they do, they're deadly. So it's this thing of, you're the rogue for 10% of the journey. You're going to actually use that with a high risk of death.
Yeah. Anyway, with that, we will end here.
Yep.